Alright, I'm going to talk today about Harry Markopoulou in the article The Whistleblower and relate it to the 7 steps in Managing Business Ethics, Chapter 4, the 7 steps on how to blow the whistle. And this is an interesting story because, well, first of all, the fraud wasn't in Harry Markopoulos' business. It was outside. He was working at a securities firm, and everyone in the investment world was kind of marveled by how Bernie Madoff was able to get such good returns, and it became his job in the office to track and understand and analyze Madoff's investment strategy and mimic it. And so Harry really got into this and really tried to understand and discover what Madoff was doing, and the more he looked, the more he realized it was impossible to get the returns that he was getting. And so I guess to go through these 7 steps, the first step, these steps don't apply perfectly to the situation because the fraud wasn't in his company, but the principles are the same. The first step says approach your immediate manager, first of all. And he talked with his managers, and the managers just kind of almost made a joke out of it. You know, how come we can't get returns like Madoff? How come you're not able to replicate this? And they didn't really see it as a serious thing, but Harry did see it as a serious thing, and analyzed it further and further, and couldn't let it go, and just wanted to understand what was happening. And he came up with multiple theories on what Madoff was doing. The second step says discuss with your family, and Markopoulos, we don't really know too much from the article as how he discussed things with his family. We do know that he didn't like the publicity, his wife didn't like the publicity that they got after Madoff was exposed, and everyone realized, why didn't we listen to Markopoulos? He knew exactly what he was talking about. But you know, I'm sure he had support from his family as he continued on trying to figure this out. In fact, he must have, because step 3 talks about taking it to the next level, and Harry decided to quit his job or retire or whatever, and he started his own business that was devoted to uncovering fraud and discovering ways that people are manipulating the system and things like that. So he definitely did take it to the next level, and this became really his life's work. And I think a lot of times that's where things end in a lot of whistleblowing scenarios, when you try and get things fixed, but you run into dead ends. And you know, in this case, what could Harry have done? It was the SEC, and you know, he kept trying to alert people, and we'll learn later he kept sending memos and encouraging people to look into things further, and nothing really happens. I think that can discourage a lot of people from continuing to report fraud and blow the whistle. But in this case, it didn't deter Harry very much. He kept going. He created his own company, and he continued on. So steps 4 talk about contacting the ethics officer, and 5 says go outside the chain of command. And that's what he did. He had a contact at the SEC, I think his name was Ed Mannion, and he contacted Ed, and he kept sending memos and outlining his theories in detail and saying, please examine them, figure out, you know, I don't think this is possible, legally possible, and Madoff's doing something that's unethical here, or he's manipulating the system in some way. And he kept sending these memos and trying to get people to listen to him. In the press, the SEC, he says in the article he felt like a one-man army battling against the $50 billion, the SEC, and everything that was stacked against him. And he wasn't making a difference, even though he really felt strongly that he had uncovered something. He couldn't get people to listen to him. And step 6 actually says go outside of the company, which he did, and he went up to the SEC, and the SEC is designed to be able to handle exactly this type of situation, and it wasn't able to just because of the magnitude and for whatever reasons. But in the book, on the 6th principle, it talks about the False Claims Act, and basically that's legislation that is trying to make it easier for whistleblowing, and is trying to encourage people to come forward with information, and that they'll be taken seriously and discover fraud. And it's interesting, in reading the article, it also talks about the False Claims Act, and that's what Harry Markopoulos is doing now. He now works with attorneys and clients that bring suit under the False Claims Act, and he works and helps uncover and does forensic accounting and things like that for claims under the False Claim Act. So it's kind of interesting, that connection there. And then the seventh point is leave the company. And like I said, he did leave his company, but his company wasn't committing fraud. Basically, what I got from this article is, you have to have tenacity and continue going forward and almost be unrelenting. Well, not almost, but be unrelenting, even when circumstances are against you, when people aren't necessarily listening. If you know something, you have an obligation, just like Harry did, to push it forward and keep doing the right thing. And that's an important part in uncovering fraud.